Charlotte Colbert. I'm a lifelong resident of Union Township and I live at 18 Banahasky Lane. I've come to this meeting today to ask about Act 537 Mingo Circle Sewage Project. I've gone back through all of the posted board meeting notes and there are discussions on this project from June the 12th, 2019 through October 14th, 2020. There's no mention of the project again until 3 years later on the October in 2023 meeting. I'm here as a member of this Mingo Circle community to ask if anyone here knows what's going on. We're still in need of sewage. We still are members of the tax base of Union Township, and we certainly have been waiting a long, long time and nothing has been happening. We'd like to know what's up and what we need to do to get answers and attention to this matter. And if anyone can help, please let me know. Thank you.
TJ, you want to advise her what you
I was going to ask if you wanted to start or if you wanted
You
me
can start, and I'll chime in.
Well, I guess to answer your question, there was a considerable amount of engineering planning work done for many years, going back 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. When Bankson was appointed as consulting engineer and when Maple's office was appointed as township solicitor, we started to try to figure out where things stood with that project. It became pretty clear that they had moved through the 537 planning process for a sewage project of this nature. And
So what happened, what we found out is, I came back on board in October 2022. So what we learned basically was that nothing was really done from my perspective, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, until we had a meeting with the DEP. And basically we're trying to figure out what's going on. When you build a sewage system, or water system or sewage system, what you normally do is you go through, you have an Act 537 plan. The Act 537 plan normally details what the costs are going to be towards to do the project, the total cost. And what you look at when you do a project like that is, what's the impact going to be on the consumer in that community? And basically you look at tap fees, you look at user rates and so forth. It's my understanding that user rates here were what, $126?
yes, that's what the 537 plan had, yes.
And I think the tap fee was what, $3,000 or $4,000?
4,000, I believe.
$4,000. And there, and that's I think it was done. So from 2019 or whatever it was, there was no pushing the thing forward. What you normally do after you do your Act 537 plan, then you have call a joint meeting with PennVest and RUS to see if the project's doable.
You have to tell them RUS and PennVest.
RUS is rural. It's one where I always hate saying rural utility services. And PennVest, they're both state. PennVest is a state agency that provides grant and loan money.
Right.
RUS, Rural Utility Services, is basically a federal program that provides money also. So basically, you normally go that route, but I understand it appears like nothing was ever done in that situation. And it's that.
Yeah, I'll jump back in and just to clarify Dennis's point. For a project of this size, when you go to any of those funding agencies, you have to have all of your environmental permits in hand. So you have to have the permits from the state that are required to construct the project. When we started our communication with DEP to figure out where the project was, they let us know that some of the permits had been applied for, but not all of the permits had been applied for. So sort of it was, the permitting phase of it was still incomplete at that time, which was something else that was needed to be worked through.
Right, so, and basically the question is, what options do we have to go in? And that's still what we're back to square one and trying to figure out how to handle the situation we have up there. So, it appears like in 2019, nothing was really accomplished. There's no meetings with RUS or PennVest to look at funding, grant or loans. That's what I've normally done over the years. So,
Could you tell me
So-
how much
so
the
it-
project?
So it was dropped, the ball was dropped somewhere,
Yeah,
like, nobody followed through with,
funding,
well, the funding, they needed,
Completing the design and then proceeding to the step of getting a funding offer, yes, and then moving into bidding and construction.
okay, well, is there a reason for that? Like, should have we came in and pressed? I mean, what
so could,
Wouldn't
was
matter.
the reason for that?
if
why
I
they dropped the ball is what?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
So, and maybe
can't
to,
go for the funding until you have final pricing,
to
correct?
provide a little more context, the NPDES permit that would have been required for a project of this size was applied for in June, or July, I believe, of 2022.
okay, that big gap, though, big gap between 19 and 20.
And that was when the permit was applied for.
Okay.
It did not then get issued until just recently, December of 2023. And the key piece to keep in mind is that that's only one of the two.
That you still needed,
When you construct a sewer project of this size, you need at least, there's two main permits you get, the Part 1 permit and the Part 2 permit.
okay?
The Part 1 mainly deals with the collection system, the gravity sewers, and then Part 2 permit mainly deals with the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay,
And DEP, there was no, in talking with DEP, they never received an application for the Part 2 permit, which was the treatment plant.
okay. Are you still thinking it's gonna go to Peters?
We don't know yet, because what you do, we have to analyze what's the most cost-efficient method. When you do the Act 537 plan, I guess we're gonna have to update the Act 537 plan to
Potentially.
reflect.
Right.
Yeah.
When we have to figure out what's the most cost-efficient, because when we go look for funding, DEP, PennVest, and RUS are gonna say, okay, this is doable, but this is not doable. And I've had situations in the past where you do a project where the cost is so high, the user rate is so high because of the different factors. If it's so high, PennVest and RUS say, we can't allocate you any money because your project's too costly. That's a possibility.
It's out of reach of the consumer. Could you tell them how much the project for the plant we're looking at being?
Yeah, I don't have that stuff with me tonight, but I remember it being in the neighborhood of a couple $1 million.
Something like that. So right now, we're looking, we've been in touch with PennVest, DEP. We have questions concerning the way that the project was started, because there's some issue with some people saying there's no, RC Cassidy of Washington Sewage Council saying some of the systems aren't failing, even though the previous engineer said they were. So we go back, my recommendation would be to have the township do a dye test on all those different properties to make sure we determine what's failing and what's not failing. So,
And
With
one
the
of,
sewage council.
Sewage Council.
I think you would find that almost every property in Union Township would fail.
No, what we have a map that was prepared by Washington Sewage Council that says there's only a few up there that haven't passed that they dye tested. Okay, so that's the reason why I think we need to do more research to see what's going on.
So those are the two main questions at this point. The overall need for the project and the information that was provided from the sewage council and the affordability.
and the option of treatment plant versus lift station to Peters Creek.
And keep in mind, when you go for PennVest funding, PennVest or RUS, DEP has a rating scale. They look at basically how many systems are malfunctioning out there, and that's what they look at. And really, I don't think that the information we have is that clear. Okay?
Okay, because I know they didn't test our place.
I don't know if they did or not. I know is I have a map that shows what they tested, what passed, and what didn't pass.
Okay,
I know they also either it's a lease agreement with the Lecos for 2 acres where the plant was going to sit, and that's going to revert back to them in probably a couple
And
years.
it's not even a lease, it's a buy with them.
Yeah.
It's a weird.
yeah,
Yeah.
They actually bought it, but he gets it back.
right.
Yeah, if you don't put a plan on it.
But I don't know why they would have done that without having the design, figure out what they're gonna do before that to me seems premature.
Yeah.
Okay?
But the issue with the lift station to Peters Creek Sanitary is every community within Peters Creek Sanitary would have to agree to it. We would have to give them a plan that if we get it to you, we get a lift station, we get the sewage to you, will you take it?
Right,
And then every community within Peters Creek Sanitary would have to agree to it. Currently, right now, there's a developer in Nottingham that is developing, is Nottingham, correct? Yeah, Lutz Road. That is developing property in Peters Creek Sanitary, but there's a percentage of the property that isn't in Peters Creek Sanitary's storage area, just like, Pinco isn't. And
Okay.
right now, they're currently voting on, every community will then vote whether or not they're okay with it. We're hopeful, because if they're okay with it for a developer, maybe they would be okay for residents in Union Township that are in need.
well,
You know, if they could say
right.
okay for a development purpose, would they say okay for, that is just one of the options.
Do they have the capacity to take all this extra?
That's clear.
That's a question that would be answered during the 537 process.
Okay, and will you continue
Yes.
looking into this then, for us?
We have to.
We tried to set up a meeting with the DEP downtown just last week.
A couple weeks ago.
A couple weeks ago.
Okay, because I've, told my neighbors, I'll be glad to kind of be their voice if, they want me to, continue to, come to the meetings and get updates for them, so. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Hall.